After a volatile relationship, all Aura wanted was to start a new life far from her ex-boyfriend Dave. A sleepy cafe in a small town seemed the perfect place to reinvent herself, and when a mysterious woman befriends her, enchanting her with fairy tales and offering an escape to another world, Aura could have got into more than she bargained for. But when Dave unexpectedly shows up, angry and determined, Aura's left with little choice but to run. This time she runs far, far away, across an invisible border to another world. A world of magic, where everything is possible. A world where Aura is known to everyone but her as the Princess of Light. And although her new title comes with the daunting responsibility of saving the world, the prize of doing so could give her what she's always wanted: a family. As Aura engages on a magical journey of discovery, her hopes to break free from Dave once and for all soon start to fade as she realizes that breaking up with the Angel of Darkness is easier said than done. And even the light needs darkness to cast shadows. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. This week's video, as you might have been able to guess, is another book review, and it is a review of a book that has been on my TBR for a surprising amount of time. That book being, I'm gonna pick you up again, Heir to the Sun by Karen Lukebo. Or at least that's how I assume that name is pronounced. It might be Lukebo or something else like that. A Scandinavian marine biologist turned physiotherapist, Karen enjoys the dark woods and matching stories, which a quick glance through her bibliography can confirm. But I'm not going to talk about her broader bibliography now. I'm specifically talking about the book the title also mentions. The first in the Chronicles of Eshe series. Or at least, again, that's how I assume that name is pronounced, because there isn't really a pronunciation guide anywhere that I could find. And this is as I said, this is supposedly the first book in a series. Yet even now, 4 years after its publication, there is no news that I could discover about any kind of sequel, and I have to say that is a little bit concerning. Now, don't get me wrong. Somewhat infamously, I currently have a book that I've had to delay, for various reasons. But but even in my case, but even so, I do understand if there are certain issues that keep her from. As I do understand, there are some issues that keep her from from publishing, but still, the fact that the 4-year gap is is still concerning. My issue isn't the one of quality, but one of magnitude, and unfortunately, that magnitude is kind of it is putting all kinds of thoughts in my head. Beyond that, looking strictly and specifically at this book, what can I say about it? Well, my impressions in summary are: its strong start is unfortunately squandered by an uneven pace and a simplistic conclusion. I understand what it is that the author was going for, but I don't really think that she has been able to develop her world and her story to the point where the idea that she was building towards really or authentically comes to life, unfortunately. So so it unfortunately has that. So unfortunately, it doesn't really rise to the potential it could have. That being said, it still has a pretty strong narrative through line. So if you are looking for for an even-handed depiction of mature but non-explicit topics in fantasy, then I can safely say that this book has you covered. That being said, I do still have to I probably say that being said too much. Anyway, with that in mind, that's better. I do still have to issue some content warnings for abuse, PTSD, family murder, cannibalism mention, and and depictions of trauma. So yeah, if you can, so you can handle that, then then you're a go for going through these books. And now that I've covered this book, and now that I've told you my broad impressions, it's time I delved into some specifics. The plot of this book, as its synopsis may have given away, follows Aura, a young woman who is running away from an who's running away from an from an unsettling past and an abusive relationship. And on her run, she finds a surprising new friend who invites her on an adventure in a completely new world. And within this completely new world, she learns a lot more about herself, her legacy, her lineage, and her capabilities as the Princess of Light and the titular heir to the sun. Unfortunately, however, she also discovers that her abusive former boyfriend also also has a role to play within this new world within which she finds herself. This, even in Arcadia, I dwell feel or shadow that the author is able to very effectively cast over the world adds an interesting new twist and new dimension to the journey of discovery this book is built around. One which allows this world to become one where wonder and nightmare walk hand in hand. Or at least that's what I assume the impression of the intention of the author was supposed to be, because in practice there are unfortunately it is unfortunately a little bit too slim for that to really shine through, or really for the significance of the the story to really shine through. Because this world does the classic does the classic fantasy error of having an overly narrow scope. And while there are 10 kingdoms mentioned within this new world, in practice only about 4 of them actually have any kind of narrative meaning. And whenever any part of the world is explored, it ultimately comes when summing all of that exploration and putting all of that exploration together, it really comes across more like visiting a couple of towns. So this story could be quite similar, regardless of whether its scale is a continent or a county, which I have to say is not a good sign. Now, some could say, and I can very easily follow that that particular argument. Some could say that that the reason for this particular scale at which the story unfolds is due to the influence that the villains of the piece have over the world, which makes certain parts of the world inaccessible or too dangerous to access, even if it is physically possible. But unfortunately, even in the parts of the world that are still accessible, I don't really see any of the industry or organizational power necessary to really establish in order to really establish the security or the safety of the world to be to fully be unleashed, or to be or to be presented within this story. So within the story, it is is unfortunately organizationally quite slimmed down, and that doesn't allow it to come to life to the extent that it really could have. That being said, the elements that are still present within the book and that do still play a part within the within the broad story, while they are slim, they do still have some level of interconnectivity, and therefore they still have some level of narrative weight that gets shift around, and it does become meaningful as as the narrative unfolds. In particular, there are a few things I like to I like to praise about the way the central plot moves along. First of which is in how it showcases the narrative weight that Aura's actions have, and how it depicts the meaning that she brings, that she brings to the world, or the impact that her actions have over the world. The second thing I want to praise is how is how Aura's journey through through the story very effectively and very rewardingly um, subverts subverts its established premises, so to speak. Because in the initial setup, I have no idea why this why it keeps going bright and then dim. So I apologize for that. I apologize for that. My recording going a little bit weird. Anyway, anyway, back to my point. I will say that so I appreciate that the book does does to some extent, but still very satisfyingly subvert the the main the story it is trying to go on, in trying to paint trying to paint Aura's development as being one way, but in fact, but then going down, but then showcasing it going down a different path. And I particularly appreciate the fact that Aura herself is the one who decides that this story actually, wait, it's kind of bothering me. Okay, should be better, or at least more consistent now. Anyway, as I was saying, as I was saying, I appreciate the fact that Aura herself takes an active role within within her own development over the course of this book, in the sense that in the sense that she marches to the beat of her own drum, throughout the course of this book. Not only learning things at her own pace, but also skipping around, and therefore learning things that she technically shouldn't be ready for, but but which she proves nevertheless still still be able to pull off. That marching to the beat of her own drum aspect of her story creates a somewhat quirky and offbeat pace for the rest of the book as well, which which in turn makes it quite a bit more interesting to read through, and also quite a bit more approachable. But it does unfortunately also affect the rate at which information. Sorry, the lights shifted again, so I'm shifting you again. But unfortunately, that also affects the rate at which information is can be presented about both the world and about other characters. I can't seem to get the lighting right for some reason. Anyway, I've already discussed how that affects the world building, but how does that affect the characterization? Well, it basically affects it by flattening most of the other, most of the cast of this book, and therefore, which in turn renders a lot of secondary characters to really only have about as much development as as certain tertiary characters, even though the tertiary characters by definition have a lot less page time. In turn, however, I will say that brings an additional level of focus and attention on Aura herself, and on her own on her own development, and on how it is that she is able to break out of the shackles that have defined her young life, which in turn makes her one of the more interesting leads or protagonists that I've that I've read about over the course of my authortuber or and booktuber career. Overall, while I think this book has a very uneven delivery when it comes to its concepts and messaging, I nevertheless still do appreciate the strength of its central core and the ways in which it is capable of creating a relationship towards its with its readers. My final rating for Heir to the Sun is a 3 out of 5. And yeah, that was my review. Thank you for your attention. If you've enjoyed it, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the book itself or to my review of it, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. Ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. My books, the first of my own Heir to the Empire series, The Next Generation and A Path Not Taken, are available at various book retailers under their respective master links in the description down below. Right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out, should you choose to. And given I, as I've already said, have a third book on the way, or one that is, one that has been delayed so far as of the time of this video's production, at the time of its release, I might just have some new updates on it. So it might be worth checking out my social media for updates on that. What else am I to say? Oh yeah, I also have a second channel where you can hear me talking about whatever else crosses my mind. Though it'll typically still be related to narrative analyses, but of works outside of print medium. So primarily movies, TVs, and occasionally the odd game. Not just video games, but also board games and other collaborative other kinds of collaborative games. So if that sounds like it could be of interest to you, then I suggest you go ahead and check that out. If, however, you want to hear more about my thoughts on the print medium and selected works therein, well then I suggest you stay on this channel and go for my extensive backlog, where aside from an embarrassment of riches when it comes to book reviews, I also have the occasional book rewriting video, writing advice video, or miscellaneous writing video. If none of what I've said sounds like it could be of interest to you, then I suggest you go ahead and do whatever you want the rest of your day, because it is your day after all. And yeah, that was it from me. So until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been the Heir's Lair.